gave proof through the night that our flag was still there.
We ask thy blessing upon all veterans who faithfully served our country and flag, who sacrificed and bled that our families and countrymen may live in freedom and peace.
I did a little bit of everything from KP to guard duty to things like that. Was a very good professional at doing that kind of stuff. So I enjoyed my career.
1956, as you can see up there, United States Air Force. 2 months after I graduated from high school, I spent 6 years in the service, 4 active duty, 2 inactive. All of it was stateside. Training in Texas, permanent party base in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Wonderful place. Except you saw the previous picture, it gets cold in Cape Cod.
That was taken at the Naval Academy in about 65, I think. My mother saved that picture, and I really thank her a lot for doing that, for that haircut. I served from 61 through 68, and you know, one of my fondest memories was being in the destroyer off the coast with the Atlantic, based out of Norfolk. And I was on an aircraft carrier, and also on the destroyer, chasing Russian submarines around the North Atlantic. It was fun.
I was going to be drafted in 68, and my mother told me that she knew this guy's draft board, and it was going to be drafted into the Marines because they were taking about 30 to 40% of the draftees at the time. I didn't want to go to Paris Island, so I enlisted in the OCS Marines. I went in 69. I got out in 71. I was sent to Vietnam, but that's when Nixon pulled the Marines out.
This is, I believe, my basic picture, which would have been April of 1966. U.S. Air Force. 4 years stationed in England, up on the north coast of Bentwaters. And if you think it's cold on Cape Cod, you should be in the North Sea as well. 2 years in the reserves, and it was the GI Bill to go to college.
I got one of the luckiest deployments ever after serving basic training in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. I got stationed in Japan, and I went to Tokyo. I rode on the James S. O'Hara, which was a military seas transport ship out of Seattle. I really got so involved with the Japanese community. I climbed Mount Fuji, with my Fuji stick, and we did a lot of things. I got involved with a program called Operation Little Red Schoolhouse that President Eisenhower started. And I started teaching schools to teaching English to Japanese students.
I'm not good at public speaking, so I'll just say.
You were a Marine, right? You were in the Marines, right?
I was in the Marines.
You are a Marine.
I have been a Marine for all my life, and I'm not going to quit.
I went to the Naval Academy, and I served 25 years on active duty, all in submarines, and some tours of duty ashore, but most of it I was submerged. I don't remember how many years, I think it's between 12 and 15. I served 6 nuclear submarines. I had command of the last 2. One was the attack submarine, non-ballistic missile submarine, and I had command of the first Trident-class submarine, the USS Ohio.
I joined the Marine Corps Reserve in August 24th, 1952. Went down to Paris Island, and for some reason, why I have no idea, political point, 2 people out of my boom platoon didn't go to Korea. Me and one other guy went to Pensacola. I went to Quantico. I spent my active duty time in Quantico, got out in 1955, went back into the reserves up at Bullet Grove. That was the first picture. I was a radar tech. And my whole career was during Korea, but I never got west of the Mississippi.
been in the Army for 25 years, so I can't take it too much because then I'd have to kill you. 61 through 86. That first picture was in Pleiku. I had a couple of wonderful assignments, Puerto Rico, Germany, 2 tours in Vietnam. That's probably the highlight. I don't want to be confused with that dentist who killed that lion. So if anybody's from Peter, I just want to apologize for that tiger. He was turned into a man-eater. He got into the Boneyard village and killed the women and children. And he made the mistake of coming to our fire base. And unfortunately, I was in artillery watching things go on by binoculars very far back, making sure I wasn't hurt. So I always had infantry securing the artillery pieces, so they shot him, unfortunately, with the 50 caliber machine gun. Very sad.
Or I was in a ceremonial guard in Washington, D.C. We were burying the people coming back from Vietnam. For 2 years I did that, and then I was on a tugboat for a year out of Philadelphia, where we spent all our time in San Juan, Puerto Rico, Nassau, all that other places.
I was assigned to a paratrooper recruiting group out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, reported at 125 pound packs sitting here for me to pick up, and we went on the tarmac waiting for a plane to pick us up and drop us. You'd be surprised where. Kennedy was negotiating with Khrushchev over the Cuban affair, and we were ready to be dropped into Cuba, and I spent that whole day waiting for the decision on how to write.
The picture was taken when I came back to the States from Korea. I enlisted I should say I was enlisted. Back in 1948, you either got drafted or you enlisted, either way. I didn't want to go in the Army, so I enlisted in the Navy for 3 years. Most memorable was a week away from being discharged after 3 years, and President Truman said, "You guys are going to stay in for another year." And I was not very happy.
There was one activation in particular that I remember. The guy drove home very early in the morning and said, "Pack your bags and report to base," which was out the door very quickly. Rich had no idea. He just knew I grabbed my suitcase and ran. And what happened is the Susquehanna overflowed, and they put us in a bus and took us there, deposited us in a school building where we slept.
I decided to go join the younger schools and go airborne. That's 3 more weeks or so, knocking on someplace. So after airborne, the line's up about 200, maybe 300 kids in the class, right? He says, "Okay, your orders are, if you're under 18, get the Gerby, you want to go. The rest of you, replacements, first cab, heavy casualties, dismissed." So that was good to hear. So I was there in Vietnam. The first 9 months, all I did was feet in the ground, neon cans. Didn't have a hot meal until Thanksgiving, I think.
I was commissioned after college, went through the ROTC program. And a year before I went on active duty, and at that time they didn't need officers. So I ended up with 6 months. The 6 months included a delightful 13 weeks Fort Benning, Georgia in the middle of the summer. And during that tour I went from 157 down to 137.
Me as a Coast Guard cadet, I served at the Coast Guard Academy for 1945 to 1947. I had the unusual experience of sailing on a full-rigged ship. My sail station was 110 feet off the water. And I'll tell you, when you're up there on the yard arm standing on a line, you remember the saying, one hand for yourself and one hand for the ship. You never let go with 2 hands when you're up in the rigging of a full-rigged ship. Then in 51 to 53, I got commissioned as an officer in the Coast Guard and spent 2 years in the tough duty of guarding the port of New Orleans. That was great.
In in the Army out of college. I served for 2 years. I never really regretted it because I considered it just an extension of my education. But at that time, we were at the very end of the Korean War, which is kind of an unknown war with an awful lot of casualties.
Enlisted in the Navy at 65. Shortly thereafter, I felt the physical for OCS because I'm colorblind, and spent 2 years on a destroyer, learned what seasickness felt like. Told me when I came aboard that that's right, you'll get used to it. And about 18 months later, I walked in on a chief petty officer, and he was leaving his breakfast in the trash can, and he was a lifer.
What you can't tell is that we weren't allowed to carry any ammunition. Seriously, they were afraid we'd hurt ourselves. If we saw somebody coming through the perimeter, we were supposed to yell and scream and run like crazy. Anyway, I was drafted twice and decided they were probably serious, so I enlisted in the Army. Now I live next door to a Marine. Where'd you go? Apparently on the street of Marines, so it's going to be a long time here.
The Geneva Convention says I just gave my name, rank, and serial number. So it's William H. Wagner, Jr. I was a captain in the United States Marine Corps. And my serial number was 074729. And I can't remember what I had for breakfast, but I can remember 16 years ago. I don't know what possessed me to go in the Marine Corps. I guess I have, I like punishment, I guess, because we certainly had it, but I loved it. I was an officer.
I was mustered into the Army at Schuylkill Arsenal in Philadelphia. It was a cold January morning in 1953. Was sent into the Irene Proving Ground. I was there for about a week, and I got a pain in my gut I couldn't ignore, so I went to the first sergeant and requested to go on sick roll. You rolled up your stuff, then you could go. And I remember getting to the dispensary and the doctor there, a little chubby fellow, just clapped his hands with a big smile. He says, "At last we found somebody who's sick."
The 181st and spent his training down at Fort Bragg. And no sooner got finished with training and he was shipped down to Kuwait. And from there, I got one phone call from him, and I said to him, "Where are you?" He said, "Mom, you know I can't tell you." This is military. But anyway, from there, he went to Iraq, and he spent his time there as the company, the CO's driver, and he saw hand-to-hand combat.
I entered the Air Force as an aviation cadet in 1959 and embarked on about a 40-year adventure with the Air Force. 20 years on active duty, 20 years with the New Jersey Air National Guard. And got to see a lot of the world. The adventure included 3 all-expense paid tours to exotic Southeast Asia, involvement in the Yugoslavian adventure, Desert Storm. And they finally took my airplane away from me in 1999, and that's when I decided to retire.
And he speaks up and he said, "Morris, hey." I said, "Okay, I'm in the service for less than a half an hour. I'm in trouble already." Come with me. And it was a medical officer. He sat me down, he grilled me about my medical form. And I had had asthma as a kid, but I outgrew it. And I said, you had asthma? I said, "Yeah." And he grilled me about it for quite a while. And then he said, "Okay, you got a medical discharge, medical discharge, you're out." Well, that was fine, except the Army doesn't give a damn whether you had asthma. I was there, and I was at Checkpoint Charlie in Berlin while the wall was going up. And you owed the Air Force 8 years after you get your wings. That's about 11 years. And
to get out of the Air Force with 11 years and only 9 to go. So the options then were you can become a non-rated officer in the Air Force, which is the lowest of the low scum. Because when you're walking around a whole lot of fly boys with nothing on you,
in my class, in our company, they had 104 people, and only 2 people made it through with the original company. The sickness was that day. Anyway, then things changed. They sent me, the Navy sent me to California. I had some really rough duty out there. It was really, I had to stay in the Del Monte Hotel for about 6 months. And we had our own lovely saltwater pool. It was just very, very nice. And from there, I went to Treasure Island, another beautiful spot. And then from there to San Diego, and where I finally got on board a destroyer.
Because of an incident at a payroll, they took down somebody that was robbing the payroll office. And I got assigned to the MP Corps. And I was in the service with the same group as Elvis Presley and a bunch of good guys. The thing with getting assigned to the MP Corps, we were inspecting 35th Army. And a 4-star general by the name of Adelman came up and talked to my commander and said he would like to have me on his bodyguard staff. So I spent the next 3 years on a bodyguard staff of General Adelman, a 4-star general. I sat at tables with colonels and stuff, and we had a menu, and we picked off the menu what we wanted to eat. So my military time was absolutely great.
A lot of free benefits. I sent something out about this many years ago, or a couple of years ago, in a blast. But you can get a veteran's ID card at the county offices, at the county recorder of deeds.
Mouthful term of what I did, but just say naval intelligence, covert special operations. How's that? Okay.
How many years?
Pardon me? 11 active duty and 5 with what they call the company. That picture was taken just after the 67 war in Israel, over in the Mediterranean somewhere. Okay? The one thing that this whole morning does for me is I can tell my story. A lot of people can't. That's pretty bad, not me.
I'm going to keep it short. So this is in Fort Knox when I was there at basic, I think near the end. And I was in the Army National Guard, served in Pennsylvania and Maryland. And the most exciting thing was we were in Baltimore 2 or 3 times during the unpleasantness in the end of the 60s.
Now, I'm working at the basic training group of the Signal Corps, and all day, sound off, and all these fellows marching. So one day, this nice ensign comes over, and Pop made all these references to saluting. This nice ensign comes to pick me up, and all the basic training guys jump and salute, and Don was and the fellows all felt he was truly a civilian at heart.